All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Tao of Manosphere. Masculine Order to Feminine Chaos. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. She calls it communication until you define it. How the joke exposes double standards, subjective truth, and the logos correction. I have watched a woman demand vulnerability, then punish the man who gave it. The joke writes itself, but the laughter is uneasy because you have lived the punchline. That is the comic promise of a good woman joke. It lands like a trapdoor opening beneath a double standard, dropping you into a recognition you did not ask for but cannot deny. A good joke is not random cruelty. It is compressed pattern recognition, a small court of logos where the contradiction is forced to testify. The humor detonates at the exact moment your mind maps the joke structure onto a memory you had filed under confusion. You laugh because you finally see the shape of what happened to you. The woman says she wants emotional openness, then recoils when the openness does not flatter her. The man offers his truth, and it is treated as bad weather, disrupting her climate. The joke compresses this into a single frame. Her mood is climate science. His evidence is merely weather. That is not mockery. It is a forensic diagram. I write these jokes not to wound, but to decode. The pattern, once named, loses its power to gaslight. The laugh is the sound of a trap breaking. The joke woman, I want a man who is emotionally vulnerable and tells me how he feels. Man, define vulnerable. Do you mean honest disclosure or only feelings that preserve attraction? Woman, not like that. I want you open, not needy. Her mood was treated as climate science and his evidence as bad weather. Why it works? The comedy lands because the dialogue stages a forced audit of a word that was never meant to survive inspection. A demand is issued. Be vulnerable, be open. Tell me everything. So far, this sounds like a progressive sacrament, emotional transparency as moral duty. The man does the one thing the speaker did not prepare for. He asks what the word means. Not cruelly, not evasively. Just, does vulnerable mean honest disclosure, or disclosure filtered for attraction preservation? And there it is. The hidden conversion is exposed. Vulnerable was never operating as an ethical category. It was operating as an aesthetic one. The demand wasn't for truth, it was for a performance of truth that maintains the emotional weather the speaker already enjoys. The moment actual vulnerability, need, fear, uncertainty that disrupts desire enters, the word is redefined mid-sentence. Open, not needy. Honest, not like that. The standard hasn't been applied, it's been navigated around like a traffic cone. The punchline does its work by translating this into a single image. Her mood is climate science, his evidence is bad weather. One is structural, authoritative, settled. The other is an inconvenience you wait out or resent for ruining the afternoon. The joke isn't that women are dishonest. The joke is that an entire communication pattern reveals itself as a subscription service. Terms and conditions apply. Cancellation permitted at any time. Attraction void where prohibited. Consider the alternates. Her truth had 3 witnesses, mood, vibe, and the group chat lands. Because it locates the appeal court, private feeling becomes public verdict via a panel that was never cross-examined. The contradiction was not a bug. It was the user interface lands because it reframes the entire dynamic. The inconsistency isn't a failure of the system. It is the system. The conditional is the feature. The fog is the architecture. What makes any of these funny rather than merely bitter is proportion. The contradiction is shown, not asserted. The woman in the dialogue isn't called a liar. She's caught editing the definition in real time because the original version couldn't survive contact with what she actually wants. The humor lives in the gap between the stated rule and the operational rule between the brochure and the product. A man who sees this gap stops arguing with the stated rule. He starts reading the operational one. That's the logos correction. And that's why the joke teaches while it cuts, the hidden assumption map. Grammar, the woman's claim, "I want a man who is emotionally vulnerable," is ambiguous. The word vulnerability equivocates between honest disclosure of any feeling and disclosure that preserves her attraction. When the man asks for a definition, she reclassifies his honest disclosure as needy. The false assumption is that the term has a fixed, benevolent meaning when in fact it shifts to exclude whatever interrupts her comfort. Logos corrects this by demanding a stable definition before accepting the premise. Logic, the claim is tested by the man's compliance. He opens up honestly, and attraction withdraws. This is a direct contradiction. The same act that satisfies the stated condition triggers the opposite of the intended reward. The false assumption is that the claim can be true even when its own test case falsifies it. Logos corrects this by applying non-contradiction. If vulnerability means honest disclosure, then punishing honest disclosure proves the claim was never about vulnerability. Rhetoric, the undefined claim, gives the speaker power to set an unreachable standard. She retains the moral high ground, "I want openness," while reserving the right to punish any instance that displeases her. The false assumption is that a demand without fixed criteria is a good faith invitation rather than a trap. Logos corrects this by exposing the rhetorical move. An undefined virtue term used to blame the man for failing a test whose rules are written after his answer. Male takeaway: do not accept virtue terms without concrete examples. When a woman says vulnerability, ask, "What does that look like in practice? Can you give me a specific instance where a man did this and you responded well?" Watch behavior, not stated values. If honest disclosure is punished, the problem is not the disclosure. It is the hidden condition that vulnerability must never interrupt attraction. The disciplined response is to define terms first, then test the claim against reality and refuse to apologize for meeting the stated standard. The logos debunk. The joke as pattern recognition. A man is told to be vulnerable. He opens up. The room temperature drops 3 degrees. He has failed a test whose grading rubric was classified until after submission. This is not a malfunction in the system. This is the system. Every man who has sat across a kitchen table, a therapist's couch, or a HR-mandated listening circle has encountered some version of this machinery. The stated request: share your feelings, be open. Let me in sounds like an invitation into intimacy. It functions as a perjury trap. The man offers honest disclosure. The disclosure is reclassified retroactively as neediness, weakness, or making it about you. He learns the lesson the apparatus was designed to teach. Compliance with the stated rule produces punishment, and the real rule is never stated. The pattern matters more than the individual. A particular woman may genuinely believe she wants vulnerability. The script she has absorbed from therapy culture, from social media, from 1,000 romantic comedies where the strong man breaks down at precisely the right moment and in precisely the right vocabulary, tells her she does. But the script was not written by people interested in male flourishing. It was written by people interested in male management. The feeling state the script produces in the woman, "I want him to open up," is real as feeling. It is incoherent as a demand because the demand's own satisfaction destroys the condition that made the demand attractive in the first place. Consider the structural symmetry with another familiar scene. She says she wants a nice guy. She dates men who are not nice. When a nice man appears, she feels no attraction and calls him a friend. The stated preference and the operative preference point in opposite directions, and the man who acts on the stated preference loses. The vulnerability script runs on identical hardware. What is requested in language is punished in experience. This is why the joke lands, not because it is clever, but because it is recognized. Every man who hears it has lived some version of it, and the recognition produces the specific laughter of a man who has been lied to by someone who may not have known she was lying. That laughter is the beginning of logos. The joke is a small courtroom where the double standard is compelled to testify against itself, the false rule hidden inside it. Strip the scene to its mechanics, and the hidden rule becomes visible. You must be vulnerable, but only in a way that increases my attraction, preserves my comfort, and does not burden me with anything I would rather not hold. If your vulnerability accomplishes any of these, it will be reclassified and punished. The definition of acceptable vulnerability will be determined after your performance by me without appeal. This is not vulnerability. This is a rigged audit. The false rule operates through what classical logicians call equivocation, the same word carrying two different meanings, switched at the moment of maximum advantage. When the word vulnerability functions as the demand, it means emotional availability, honesty, depth of connection. When it functions as the verdict, it means weakness, burden, failure to lead. The speaker uses the first meaning to extract compliance and the second meaning to punish the compliance extracted. The man cannot win because the winning condition is revised after his move. The deeper false assumption is that attraction and honest disclosure can be reconciled on demand, as though desire were a committee decision. They cannot. Attraction is not a moral judgment. It does not reward virtue. It does not punish vice. It simply is. A woman may genuinely admire a man's courage in sharing grief, and feel her attraction cool at the same time, and be disturbed by the cooling, and punish the man for causing the disturbance she cannot control. The honest move would be to say, I want you to be vulnerable, but I don't always like what that costs me. That would be vulnerability on her part. It is rarely offered. Instead, the man is charged with the crime of meeting the stated standard in the wrong emotional weather. The grammar, what is actually being claimed? Grammar is the discipline of asking what words mean before debating whether they are true. Most arguments between men and women are lost at the grammatical stage because the man accepts a term he has not defined and then tries to win on logic what was already conceded on vocabulary. The word vulnerable descends from the Latin vulnus, wound. To be vulnerable is to be wound-able, to expose the unarmored place, to stand without defense before another person's judgment. In genuine vulnerability, the vulnerable party accepts the risk that the exposure may be received poorly. That is what makes it courageous rather than theatrical. But the demand I want you to be vulnerable carries an unspoken modifier, in a way I find attractive. This modifier is never stated, because stating it would reveal the trap. If she said, I want you to share feelings, but only the ones that make you seem deeper without making you seem weaker, and only in a register I find emotionally stimulating rather than depleting, the demand would collapse under the weight of its own conditions. No man could meet it, because it is not a request for honesty, it is a casting call. The grammatical correction is to refuse the undefined term. When a man hears, I want you to be vulnerable, his first response should not be compliance or resistance, but definition. What does that look like? Can you describe a specific instance where a man did this well? What was your response? The answers, or the evasion of answers, will tell him everything he needs to know about whether the request is real or ritual. A request that cannot survive a request for specifics was never a request. It was a script the speaker wanted performed without realizing it had an author, the logic. What does the evidence prove? Logic tests whether claims match evidence. The claim, I want a man who is emotionally vulnerable. The test case, a man discloses genuine emotional pain. The result, attraction withdraws. The disclosure is reclassified as needy, and the man is worse off than if he had said nothing. By the principle of non-contradiction, the claim is falsified by its own test case. If vulnerability means honest disclosure of feelings, and honest disclosure of feelings is punished, then the claim, I want vulnerability, cannot mean what it says. Either the word means something other than honest disclosure, or the want is aspirational rather than actual. She wants to be the kind of person who wants it without actually wanting it. This is the problem Dostoevsky's underground man diagnosed at the level of civilization. People will demand a thing, receive it, and resent the thing they demanded because the demand was never about the thing. It was about the feeling of demanding. The demand for male vulnerability often functions as moral signaling, a way for the speaker to locate herself on the enlightened side of the therapeutic ledger, rather than as a genuine request for information she is prepared to hold. The logical structure is a performative contradiction. The act of making the demand contradicts the content of the demand. If she genuinely wanted his interior life, she would prepare a container for it: patience, discretion, non-retaliation, gratitude. Instead, she demands the contents and provides no container. The contents spill. She calls it a mess, and he is blamed for the spillage. Logic names this precisely. It is not vulnerability that failed. It is the receiving end that was never built to receive. Syllogistic form makes the contradiction inescapable. Premise 1. If she wants vulnerability, honest disclosure will be welcomed. Premise 2. Honest disclosure is punished. Conclusion. She does not want vulnerability, or her want is overridden by a stronger want she has not named. The stronger want is almost always attraction preservation. The man who understands this has cracked a code that saves years of confusion and self-blame. The problem was never his openness. The problem was the hidden priority that ranked his openness below her comfort with the opening. The rhetoric, who benefits from the confusion? Rhetoric asks who gains power from an undefined claim. The answer here is straightforward. The speaker retains total interpretive authority. She sets the standard, judges the performance, and revises the criteria, all after the fact, all without notice, all without accountability. This is not unique to women or to romantic dynamics. Bureaucracies operate the same way. Policies so vague that any employee can be found in violation at any time, with compliance assessed by whoever holds institutional power on the day of assessment. The genius of the system is that the subject always feels he failed, rather than recognizing that the standard was designed to produce failure. The bureaucracy of romantic speech works similarly. The man who is punished for vulnerability believes he did vulnerability wrong and resolves to try harder next time, rather than recognizing that the grading rubric is not published because publication would end the game. The rhetoric of therapeutic culture amplifies the confusion. Words like safe, held, seen, and validated enter private speech, carrying the authority of clinical language without the precision. Safe means whatever threatens the speaker's emotional state is unsafe. Held means whatever does not match the speaker's desired feeling is failure to hold. These terms function as moral leverage. They convert subjective preference into ethical obligation. If her vulnerability is sacred and yours is a burden, the moral asymmetry is not an accident. It is the architecture. Who benefits? The party who controls the definitions. Who pays? The party who complies in good faith with definitions that change upon contact with reality. The man who takes the demand at face value provides emotional labor, receives contempt as receipt, and is told the contempt is his fault for delivering the labor in the wrong tone, at the wrong time, in the wrong emotional packaging. The system extracts, then blames the extracted. Name the move, undefined virtue term used to compel performance whose failure is predetermined by the definition's instability. That is not intimacy, that is a shakedown wearing intimacy's clothes. The male error, the standard male error, is compliance with undefined terms, followed by apology for the predictable failure. A woman says, "I want you to open up." The man, trained by a culture that treats female emotional requests as moral imperatives, opens up. The reception is cold. He concludes he opened up wrong, too much, too soon, too heavy, too unstructured. He resolves to calibrate better next time. He does not ask the one question that would dissolve the confusion. Was the request itself coherent, or was I set up to fail by a standard that does not exist? The deeper male error is treating every female emotional claim as a problem to solve rather than a claim to evaluate. A man schooled in the old code, "A woman's pain is your responsibility," will hear "I want vulnerability" and treat it as a mission brief. He will perform emotional labor as though laboring harder could resolve a contradiction built into the mission parameters, but no amount of push-ups will let you jump off a cliff and fly. The laws are wrong, not the effort. The worst version of this error is the man who internalizes the reclassification and decides he is broken, that his vulnerability is genuinely toxic, that his emotional needs are too much, that he should work on himself before burdening anyone. He enters therapy, where a professional trained in the same therapeutic vocabulary will confirm that his problem is not being vulnerable enough in the right way. And the circular extraction continues at $60 a session. The man pays to be told he failed a test whose answer key was burned before he sat down. The error has a name in classical logic, answering the question without examining the premise. Before a man asks, "How do I do vulnerability correctly?" he must ask, does the person asking me to be vulnerable have a working definition, and does she have a container for what she is requesting? If the answer to either is no, no amount of technique will save him. The logos correction, the correction begins with grammar and ends with frame. Define before you perform. When the demand arrives, I want you to be vulnerable translated into a concrete question. What specifically would you like me to share? Can you give me an example of a time someone did this well? How did you respond? Her answer, or her inability to answer, is more informative than anything you could share. If she cannot describe what she wants in concrete terms, she does not know what she wants. She wants the feeling of wanting it, which is a different thing entirely. Test the claim against its own evidence. If vulnerability was welcomed in the past, the claim is real. If it was punished, minimized, weaponized in later arguments, or quietly filed as evidence of inadequacy, the claim is performative. Behavior is evidence, words are weather. Track the weather if you like, but build your house on the geology of what actually happened. Name the hidden priority. The unspoken hierarchy is almost always attraction greater than comfort, greater than your emotional needs. This is not evil, it is nature. A man who resents nature for being nature will spend his life angry at gravity. But a man who pretends the hierarchy does not exist will spend his life confused about why he keeps hitting the ground. The logos move is not to demand that reality change, but to see reality clearly and act accordingly. Refuse the undefined audit. If the definition of success is private, mutable, and retroactive, you are not being invited into intimacy, you are being processed by machinery. State plainly, I am willing to share what I carry with someone who has shown she can hold it. Show me the container and I will fill it. This is not harshness, it is discernment. A man who pours clean water into a leaky bucket and then blames himself for the drought has confused generosity with self-destruction. Reward directness. When she tells you what she actually wants, even if it is less flattering than the therapeutic script, honor it. A woman who says, I find it hard to stay attracted when you seem weak has given you something more valuable than 1,000 therapy sessions. The truth, work with truth. The woman who says, I want vulnerability while punishing it is not your enemy, but she is not your confessor either. She is a person caught in a script she did not write, running on incentives she has not examined. Your job is not to fix her. Your job is to see clearly, act accordingly, and build a life where your emotional life is held by people whose containers are real. Brothers, mentors, fathers, priests, men who have earned the right to your interior life by proving they will not weaponize it. The maxim writes itself, a request that cannot survive a request for definition was never a request. It was a performance review with no job description. Demand the job description. If none exists, find better management. Your interior life is not a test case for someone else's unresolved contradiction. It is the core of your agency, and it deserves a container built for holding rather than for display field manual. The joke about vulnerability that interrupts attraction is not a grenade to lob across the dinner table. It is a field instrument. It reveals a structural double bind. The modern script demands male emotional disclosure, while female desire often punishes the disclosure once delivered. The man who sees this clearly and stays calm holds the advantage. The man who sees it and turns spiteful has simply changed masters from seeking her approval to seeking evidence she is wicked. Both postures keep him reactive. What follows is the discipline. 1. Treat the joke as a diagnostic instrument, not a verdict on women. A joke that exposes a double standard is a pattern recognition tool. It does not prove all women are deceitful or incapable of reason. It proves a specific incentive structure exists. A weather gauge does not hate the storm it measures. Use the joke to read the room, not to indict the species. 2. When you hear the vulnerability demand, define the word before you meet it. I want you to be vulnerable as a phrase decoder, not an instruction. Vulnerability may mean honest disclosure. It may mean feelings that preserve the romantic frame. It may mean a confession she can later reference. Ask once, calmly, do you mean honest disclosure or only feelings that don't shift how you see me? Her answer is data. If the answer is incoherent or evasive, you have learned what the word performs rather than what it means. Adjust accordingly. Do not argue about the incoherence. Note it. 3. Translate the web into one claim before responding. Female-coded communication often arrives as a web. Overlapping implications, shifting standards, emotional weather treated as structural fact. A web is not a proof. Before you react to any single thread, isolate the actionable demand. I want you open, not needy, contains two claims in tension. Translate it. She wants disclosure that does not cost me status in her eyes. That is one claim. Test that claim against your experience. Respond to the claim, not the weather around it. 4. Never apologize for a fact because it arrived in the wrong tone. The scene is familiar. A man offers an accurate observation. The woman objects to the delivery, and the apology swallows the substance. Tone is a separate question from truth. If your delivery was genuinely contemptuous, correct the delivery, but keep the proposition intact. I said that poorly, but the observation stands is sufficient. Do not ritual surrender the fact to preserve the mood. A fact badly received is not a fact disproven. 5. Distinguish good faith from bad faith by watching the response to clarification. Good faith, she wanted honesty, receives it, adjusts, engages. Bad faith, she wanted a performance, receives reality, penalizes the man for breaking character. The difference is visible within 30 seconds of a clean definition question. A good faith interlocutor may push back, but will not collapse into accusation. A bad faith interlocutor will treat the request for a definition as aggression. Reward good faith with deeper openness. Withdraw from bad faith without ceremony. 6. Keep your humor forensic, not retaliatory. The winning joke, her mood was treated as climate science and his evidence as bad weather, works because it is precise, not cruel. It names the asymmetry in a single image. A man who wields this kind of humor stays free because he has named the pattern without being captured by it. The joke fails the moment it becomes a weapon fired in wounded pride. If you cannot tell the joke calmly, you are not yet detached enough to tell it. Wait. 7. The point is anti-delusion, not anti-woman. Every joke in this register serves one purpose: to dissolve a false script and replace it with clear seeing. The false script says, be fully vulnerable, and she will love you more. The cleared vision says, disclose strategically, define terms relentlessly, observe behavior over narration, and build your frame outside the approval mechanism. A woman thus seen becomes human, capable of virtue and vice, good faith and bad faith, love and self-interest. De-idealization, not dehumanization. You stop projecting divinity onto her. You stop resenting her for not being divine. You deal with her as she is. Quick decode. Double standard. A standard is real only if it binds both sides. Takeaway. Ask whether the rule would still apply if roles were reversed. Solipsistic evidence. A feeling may be meaningful without being evidential. Takeaway. Respect emotion without letting it replace proof. Subjective truth. Shared reality begins with common terms. Takeaway. Return to definitions before debating accusations. Inferior logos, a and not a, cannot both be demanded under the same rule. Takeaway. Slow down and test the claim against non-contradiction. Tone tribunal. Delivery and truth are separate questions. Takeaway. Lower heat while keeping the proposition intact. I have given you the comedy of correction and the grammar of resistance. Every joke in this book is more than ammunition, it is a diagnostic tool. When a contradiction makes you laugh, you have seen through the fog. When a platitude collapses under its own weight in the punchline, you have watched Logos do surgery without anesthesia. The jests here are not cruelty, they are clarity wearing a sharp outfit. Use them to test what is said against what is meant, to drag the hidden premise into the light, to refuse the double standard its comfortable darkness. A man who can joke under pressure is a man who has not been captured by the narrative. One final truth: jokes are moral X-rays. They reveal exactly where language is hiding from truth. Sponsored book. Tao of Manosphere, Masculine Order to Feminine Chaos. You were lied to. From the moment you could understand language, they fed you a story, a fairy tale dressed up as truth. They told you that love is unconditional, that women are pure, that equality means fairness, that sacrifice leads to reward. You believed it. You worked hard. You were kind. You obeyed the rules. And still you were discarded, used, betrayed, not because you failed, but because the system was never built for men like you to win. It was built to break you, to neuter you, to make you pay for sins you didn't commit while real predators walked free under the banner of progress. This book is not for everyone. It is for the man who has stared into the void of modern life and felt the cold truth. Something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. I know that feeling. I lived it. I was raised in a world that told me virtue would be rewarded, that honesty, loyalty, and hard work would earn me respect, love, and a place in society. Instead, I watched as men like me were mocked, replaced, and erased. I watched women I respected lie, without hesitation, use emotion as a weapon, and reward cruelty while punishing kindness. I watched institutions, schools, courts, media, churches side with the predator and punish the protector. I saw brothers lose their jobs, their children, their lives, not because they were bad men, but because they were good men in a world that hates goodness in men. I reached a point where silence felt like complicity. This book is my refusal to stay silent. The truth is not hidden. It is buried under layers of propaganda, emotional manipulation, and moral cowardice. Women are not inherently virtuous. Empathy is not always good. Equality is not always just. The feminine principle, when unchecked, is chaos. Not because women are evil, but because nature designed them for survival through instability, not order. Hypergamy is not a myth. It is the engine driving the sexual marketplace, and it is why so many decent men are left behind. The state did not rise to protect you. It rose to control you, to replace the father with bureaucracy, to turn sons into obedient subjects. This is not conspiracy. This is biology. This is history. This is observable, repeatable, undeniable reality. If you are a man who has been called toxic for wanting loyalty, abusive for setting boundaries, privileged for working 60 hours a week to support a family, then this book is for you. If you have been punished for being strong, while weak, manipulative men rise through deception, then you need this book. If you are tired of being gaslit by therapists, betrayed by lovers, abandoned by brothers, and lectured by women who wouldn't last a day in your shoes, then this book is your reawakening. It is not about hate. It is about clarity. It is about seeing the game for what it is and learning how to play, or better, how to walk away with your soul intact. Water does not fight chaos. It flows around it, wears it down, shapes it without force. That is the Tao of masculine resistance. That is the weapon you will carry. This book will not comfort you. It will not pat you on the back and tell you everything will be okay. It will show you the rot at the core of modern civilization, how feminism, leftism, and state control have conspired to destroy male identity, brotherhood, and purpose. It will expose how education, media, and religion have been feminized to serve a matriarchal order that sees men as expendable resources. It will reveal the economics of hypergamy, the weaponization of empathy, the myth of female innocence, all with ruthless logic and irrefutable evidence. And then it will show you how to rebuild, not as a victim, but as a king. A man of virtue, discipline, and quiet power. A man who no longer seeks permission to exist. If you are not ready for this, if you still believe the lie, if you worship at the altar of female innocence, if you think equality justifies the destruction of men, then close this book now. Walk away. Go watch a Netflix series. Scroll TikTok, marry a woman who will drain your bank account and take your kids, live in ignorance. Be happy in your delusion. This book is not for you. It is for those who have seen the blood on the floor and refuse to look away. It is for men who want to stop being played, used, and discarded. It is for those who understand that the future of the West depends on the reclamation of masculine order, not domination, but balance. Chaos must be met with structure, emotion with reason, weakness with strength. This is not a self-help book. It is a war manual, and the war is already here. You are not broken, you were betrayed, and the truth, raw, unfiltered, dangerous truth, is the only thing that can set you free. Read on if you dare, or remain asleep. The choice is yours. Tao of Manosphere, Masculine Order to Feminine Chaos. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.